First of all, I have to disappoint you, because the most paranormal story will have to be reserved for later. I didn't pick the best of times to go out and make photos. Not only that, I almost shat my pants because of some creepy dude there, but also visibility was shit. However, a few of these photos will fit another story quite nicely. Use your imagination to envision the locales I'm going to tell you about, because some of these places are too far away / too creepy / don't exist anymore. Still, I think you will find this to your liking. Here it goes. It's 92. The country's still shaken. My grandpa is still serving in Milis Shiva in our town. One day, weird guy comes to his station, acting all awkward and shy. Obviously nervous. According to Grandpa, he looked like a drunken bum in dirty, torn clothes. Despite his looks, though, he had both proper passport and legal address. In short, he told him this. In one of the farthest and worst parts of town, that consisted of garage cooperative and abandoned train depot. You can see the train depot gates on the first photo. I have no fucking idea why it glows green, but I guess it looks amusing. His friends started to go missing. By the by, I have no idea where that depot is even there. I've never seen a single train in those fucked up tracks in my life. Those people were not just some random guys, but true to life vagabonds who had some sort of spot there where they hid from people's eyes. Also, there was scrap and copper reception point nearby. Translator note: selling stolen scrap and copper was an integral part of survival for many bums back in the 90s. That explains why they sent an emissary who actually had some legal papers instead of one of their own, because no one wanted to spend their nights at a monkey house. Monkey house is a slang term for a cell that houses drunks and bums, or used as a scapegoat to help Milis Shiva to close some dead cases, which was regrettably a quite widespread practice back then. As he explained that something strange was happening there. Just 2 days ago, one of the bums walked away from the bonfire to take a piss and just never came back. Around 30 minutes later, his friends lit some sticks and went looking for him with those improvised torches. You never know, he might have fallen asleep in a ditch or something. But despite all their efforts, they failed to locate their friend. Although drunk bums are not very good at nocturnal search operations, let's be honest here. Their friend didn't come back tomorrow or the day after tomorrow either. They didn't think much of it, especially because a full bottle of vodka went missing that night too, which apparently was a commodity valuable enough for them to justify their friend's sudden flight. He didn't take any of his stuff with him, so they were waiting for him to come back, ready to kick his ass. But on the next night, another one of them went missing, under much more frightening circumstances. Similarly, one of them walked away from the bonfire to take a leak, but as soon as he left the circle of light provided by it and entered the bushes, he let out a terrifying scream that was abruptly cut short. This prompted the other bums to action as they rushed to his rescue. But at that moment, according to the emissary, they heard some sort of growl, which made them stop in their tracks. He didn't see much himself, cause no one thought to prepare torches for such an occasion, but some of his friends claimed to see a scary person who was grinning at them from the darkness. Barely dissipated by the weak light of their bonfire. To cut the long story short, they got really scared and went back to their bonfire, not daring to go to sleep till the morning. At that point, the bums were forced to take extreme measures and ask for help from one of their sworn enemies, the Milis Shiva. Legally speaking, Milis Shiva had no basis to reject his report, so it was accepted, discussed during the smoke break, and promptly dismissed as mad homeless ravings or some sort of prank. Cops had enough on their plate already, but next, disappearance forced them to ponder and act. One of the town's citizens disappeared, a simple regular guy who liked to drink and drive around in his car in his free time. According to his wife, he was a responsible family guy who never left for a long time without warning. But 2 days have passed and there was no sign of him. By the way, fuck if I know why she didn't report his disappearance after the first 24 hours passed. And the last place where he was seen was, you've guessed it, that very same cooperative, which was situated near the bum spot, where he left his car and went home using familiar and shortest route. Old railway tracks. Connecting its disappearance with those of bums was of course an obvious thing to do, As you can see on the photos, forest closely surrounds the tracks from both sides. Similar situation is on the other direction, except there was a bridge there that you can see on the photo. I decided not to climb that bridge because I saw a corpse lying there in my childhood, which didn't leave me with a lot of pleasant memories. That corpse itself is not interesting. Typical story of the late 90s. After the bridge, there's more forest on the right and concrete wall on the left, separating the railway from old warehouses. They were almost abandoned back then, and by the mid-2000s, they were demolished. After that, some sort of building materials market was constructed there. But by now, it is abandoned too. I guess that place just had that fate. And it goes like that for more than 1.5 kilometers till it reaches more or less civilized areas of town. At first, they suspected the bums themselves, obviously. But on the other hand, if any of them were guilty, he would have ran away after their emissary informed the militia, but one cooperative was sent to question them anyway. Although he was either a dumb fuck, or the bums left their usual place, because he didn't find anyone. Meanwhile, my grandfather took a group of subordinates and went to visit those old warehouses, which were the obvious place to hide potential bodies. Besides, at that point in time, there wasn't even a single security guard working there. Skipping the boring details, what they found was a checkered shirt with some traces of blood that, according to the missing guy's wife, was on him when he left home. In addition, there was a lot more various trash and a couple of mattresses. The room they found them in was relatively clean too, in comparison to the rest of the warehouse. Experts immediately detected some sort of fingerprints there, and that's where a certain surprise awaited them. It was revealed that fingerprints belonged to 2 convicts who escaped some prison near Solikamsk whole 15 years ago and were largely forgotten about by that point. By the by, they were in prison for some pretty heavy stuff. Sexual assault and something else, as far as I could remember. One of them was local. The other one used to live in Moscow. The local one was 62 years old at that point, and the one from Moscow was 41. The next logical step was to check the address where local escaped convict used to live. His flat was on the first floor in a pretty bad part of town. The apartment complex itself was in critical state. It has been demolished by now, and the flat itself belonged to the town's housing fund for some reason. Khan would have been quite surprised if he chose to return home legally, I bet. But no one lived there anyway. It turned out that getting the keys wasn't a problem, since the door, a piece of plywood, was already broken into. The lock was torn out. Inside the apartment, or to be more precise, inside his bathroom, they found, without any exaggeration, a fucking pandemonium. First, traces of blood were found on the floor and walls of the corridor. And in the bathroom itself, there was a bath full of body parts, belonging to 3 people in total, though heads and torsos were never found, as far as I know. Apparently chopped with an axe, that wasn't ever found either. Those parts floated in dirty, cold water. No idea where they did get it, since water supply to the flat was cut off long ago. Stench of decomposition and feces was horrible. Toilet was literally covered in excrements, but neighbors didn't contact militia, which was understandable since nobody lived on the first 3 floors, except for an ancient blind gaffer from the second. Kitchen had a portable gas stove, big tin can with traces of blood on it, half-full bag of potatoes, and a pile of human bones just laying in the corner. This is when the realization hit the operatives. Khans, whose fingerprints found everywhere around the apartment, were eating those people. Fuck if I know why, and for what reason. I mean, you can just steal food, like those potatoes, but they were eating them. Everything pointed to this conclusion. Questioning the other tenants didn't give investigators anything new to go on. Those few who lived there, less than 10 people in total, unanimously claimed that they have never seen any unfamiliar men there, but that blind old man said that night before Militia paid a visit to the flat, someone was trying to force themselves into his apartment for a few hours straight, but to no avail. Case was turning more and more serious by the minute. 2 operatives were left in the apartment to lay ambush, while my grandfather went straight to the prosecutor's office demanding them to involve the federals, because this case was clearly out of his league, and he knew only too well who would have to answer to all this shit if it turned even more serious. Imagine that. A mass murder plus 2 wanted escaped convicts. Case was taken away from him surprisingly fast. Almost no one there even tried to argue with him. 2 operatives who spent the night in the flat almost went mad from stench and disgust. They were freed from their unpleasant duty, though murderers never returned to their apartment anyway. Everyone involved was thoroughly questioned by the feds. Grandpa himself and the immediate superiors got their asses kicked by them for sloppiness, but no one lost their office or got demoted. Who took this case over? What info I have left could be classified as rumors told during the smoke breaks. But if you start to tell the story, you have to finish it, even though I don't have all the details. Perpetrators' tracks were found not far from town, near a big forest that stretches for dozens of kilometers. There was a place there called the Lodge, even though it was, in fact, more of a country house cooperative, consisting of something around 40 houses. My guess, call came from there. Federals failed to apprehend both of them, though, and here's why. They were already pursuing them through the woods when suddenly they stumbled upon older one, lying on the ground and grinning like a madman. Apparently his friend broke his leg with something heavy and proceeded to escape alone. He was dragged to a car and interrogated, but no one managed to squeeze out a single word out of him. He just kept whining and growling like an animal. The younger one was never found, even though a search party combed through the whole fucking forest with dogs. The older con kept whining and shaking all the way to the precinct, but at one point fell silent. Turns out, he managed to gnaw off his own tongue. Doctors managed to save his life, again, according to the rumors. He proved uncooperative and was officially recognized as insane, and got locked away in specialized asylum for the rest of his days. Neither I nor my grandpa could vouch for a single word in a previous part, as you can understand. But there is only one proper version of events. No mysteries here. 2 escaped convicts were fucking around somewhere for 15 whole years and managed to get to Ural, to Moscow. They probably went through a lot in their travels, and at some point were forced to eat someone to avoid death from hunger. Maybe another bum, or just some random tourist. Apparently, this experience took a heavy toll on them psychologically, and they acquired a taste for human meat. After that, they switched to a whole new menu, slowly turning more and more into a couple of fucking animals, if the older one was of any indication. And only here, in the Moscow region, they became bolder and ate someone who would be searched for, because finding them basically wasn't really that hard. But there is another factor. They had almost animal-like sense of danger, always managing to outpace Milicevo pursuit just by a day or 2. That's it. By the way, it was really creepy taking these photos, knowing that in theory, one of them is still on the run, even though he must be really old today. Those locales now are very far away from any proper civilization, as it was back then. Also, I would never want to be in the shoes of that blind old man during that night. This part of the story always chilled me to the bone.